Hello, viewers. Welcome to the season 2 and episode 3 of SADF Podcast, where I have Mr. Paulo Casaca, Executive Director of South Asia Democratic Forum, talking on the present human rights situation in Bangladesh. So, welcome, Paulo. Long
Thank
time.
you. Mhm.
We are
Well, it
always.
has been some time, some developments, unfortunately confirming the worst of our predictions
Mhm.
regarding the situation in Bangladesh. I said from the beginning that it was obviously a coup that was um, done against secular forces, pro Islamists, pro China. It was inevitable. It is not a matter of the gaffe of Mr. Yunus regarding the Seven Sisters. It's just a fait divers. It was written that this was going to happen like that. And the release of terrorists, we have seen already the Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army with their symbols in the Chittagong tracks that might be used as a weapon to repress minorities in Bangladesh. And I think that we will see, as it was the case before the Sheikh Hasina government in 2009, we will see a lot of terrorist groups based in Bangladesh destabilizing its neighborhood. And of course, the human rights situation. Everything was written on the arrest um, of Shariar Kabir. It could not be more obvious what we would have to expect because someone that has absolutely zero to do with violence, is against violence, is a symbol of secularism in Bangladesh, and has been all his life committed to try the genocide perpetrators arrested. It's one of the first things they did. It's very telling. Please.
So, uh, thank you for summarizing the present situation that has escalated in Bangladesh. And you are right that the human rights situation is not very good at this moment. They promised a lot of things, but they couldn't deliver, if I can put it summarily. So let us first talk about, people had a lot of faith on this Yunus factor, right? So they thought that when Yunus will take over, Bangladesh will become a more human rights oriented country. Women empowerment will go rocket high, and we will have a lot of business coming into Bangladesh's way. But we have seen that that actually didn't happen. Yes, in one or two places perhaps there was some deals being signed, but they were actually in continuation to the previous government's initiatives. So what do you think that going wrong for that Yunus factor is not working in Bangladesh?
Well, I think that the Yunus factor was a fraud from the beginning. Just carefully read the Norwegian Nobel Committee prize awarding to the Grameen Bank and Mr. Yunus, its president, and I was shocked with the kind of things that I read over there. Because only the complete ignorance of our world and the history of our world. I'm not a big expert on the issue, but I did write a book on in 2021 on money, and one of the things I did was I bought an encyclopedia of money, and I read it, and it's to imagine that Mr. Yunus was invented lending without collateral, which they say as a motive for giving him the Nobel Prize is so out of this world. It's the people who said that are so ignorant or are actually liars that how is it possible? That the world is making trusting so much this Nobel Committee Prize, and they do things like that. It's absolutely unbelievable because I actually know it from my childhood. Because my mother used to get this sort of loans, microcredit, of course, much before the Grameen Bank did whatever, it's the current thing that was done for thousands of years. I mean, he invented nothing. The only thing that was done by Mr. Yunus or by the apparatus around Mr. Yunus was to make a lot of very nice declarations on hardcore banking activity, usury. That's what it is. So, what could we expect from having a banker in directing the country? Of course, he took good care of seeing that his bank got very generous conditions. Of course, that I'm sure he did not forget about. But the rest, I mean, he couldn't care less. It's not his business. He knows very well that the only real ingrained force that can destroy the existing Bangladesh, I don't know imperfect or not, but democratic system, democratic and secular system, very imperfect, we could say, more or less imperfect, but it is democratic secular system, was the radical Islamists, were the jihadists. And so he just said, okay, as long as I can do my business, you have the power. You do whatever you want. You arrest whoever you want. You take care of justice. You take care of everything. And that's what happens. And regarding China, I mean, his declarations are absolutely atrocious because, I mean, he is fundamentally threatening India of cutting the so-called chicken's neck. But I don't think they are surprising, because obviously the whole of the jihadi camp in Bangladesh as very important, reference, which is to combat India and, of course, to go with China. China is an ally. It's an ally in Bangladesh, in Pakistan, in Iran as well. With different sorts of actors. And so this was obvious. How the Americans came into support such a thing, it's really fantastic. They have been doing this sort of things that are completely absurd. They have been doing it on Iraq. They did it in Egypt. They did it in Libya. Well, they did it in Bangladesh. Okay, so it's not really the first time. They've been doing a lot of it. But that's another chapter. I think that the American factor is perhaps the most important factor around here, because
Okay.
the United States are a giant. When they will wake up, they will understand what's going on. I think a lot can change.
Thank you. So you were mentioning that with the advent of Yunus factor, the Bangladesh couldn't change the scenario of radical Islamism, and the rising terrorism is there because of, like, the first sign was probably during this uh, student movement. A lot of inmates who were inside the prison on terrorist allegations, on terrorism charges, they were brought outside. They escaped prison, a lot of them. There were a lot of arms and ammunition was stolen from different police stations. So how all these things are influencing the rise of terrorism, I mean Islamic terrorism in Bangladesh?
Well, I think that we have now the most vocal and widespread jihadi movement in the world, well, with the exception perhaps of Afghanistan. We have enormous demonstrations with sometimes with armed people, with posters of bin Laden, of Hitler, of the Taliban. And this is the immediate result of what happened in July, August. There was a facade. I mean, there are two cover-ups. One of them is Yunus, we spoke about it. The other one was the students. Well, the students. Who are the students? When we started digging who are the students, we saw that the majority of them were actually jihadis that were transformed into students. A lot of them were coming from the madrasas, coming to the universities directly from the madrasas, fanaticized. And they were actually the same sort of people that are the Taliban. the Bangladesh sort of Talibans. And they were the ones. I mean, one or the other, they really thought that things could go different. There could be some sort of democracy. Some of them are already, trying to get back, But, there are always those who do not quite understand what's going on. But the the hardcore of the movement was completely jihadi. The most important thing in the movement was to go against India, go against secularism, go against any sort of democratic representation. And what we have right now is that Mr. Yunus keeps postponing, doesn't commit himself to elections, to free and fair elections, to any sort of elections. I think that he will try to be there for as long as possible, to make as much business as possible, as long as it lasts. And we are seeing, from his party, people saying, oh, we should not speak about elections before hanging Sheikh Hasina, which is a very telling um, declaration, or saying, spontaneous demonstrations, say, oh, no, we want you, Mr. Yunus, to be there forever, you keep on being there for 5 years, or indefinitely.
Yes. I mean, all this is so. I mean, all the claims are so random. That is what is actually killing the momentum of development, of working to eliminate crime. I mean, everything is in a hotspot situation. So, when we were talking about terrorism, that India has the largest border with Bangladesh, and recently in one of the meetings when they met Modi, and before meeting Modi, the situation with Yunus and India was very tense because of what he mentioned about India's chicken neck and the Seven Sisters. So how and I mean rise of terrorism and with this battle of words, how do you see that India and Bangladesh relationship is going to be in the near future?
No, it's very bad, of course. It's, I think, but the whole of the issue of the movement was it was a movement against India. So it's not surprising. I mean, I think that we will probably see terrorist groups starting to act more and more in the northeast of India, based in Bangladesh, and even in West Bengal. There are some credible news that some jihadi networks might be responsible for a lot of the problems that West Bengal in India are facing right now. We will see that in Myanmar, I'm certain. We will see that, of course, in the Chittagong Hill tracks, where the Rohingya will be instrumentalized, to go against the indigenous populations. This is obviously the scenario, and I think that India certainly will have to respond. I mean, it cannot stand still because its security is being threatened.
When you say that, I just want to remind you that India did not remain silent. They have made two strikes already. One is they have stopped transshipment of Bangladeshi goods through their airports. And another thing they did, that they were supposed to invest in the establishment of a lot of infrastructures in Bangladesh so that their trucks can go through Bangladesh to the Seven Sisters. So they have stopped that funding. So these are the two strikes. But in the meantime, we are already seeing that there is a terrorist attack in Kashmir as we speak. So, I mean, do you think any connection with that, with the rise of Bangladesh terrorism in there?
Well, you see, regarding Kashmir, actually, it is the terrorist attack took place in a place, in an area I know very well. I was there some years ago, and actually, operationally, it's not very difficult to do it, because it's a very open area, mountainous area. If you have committed terrorists with some guns, you can do it. So it's not. I mean, you do not really have to get a command from Bangladesh. Do not need an involvement. But the declarations of senior people within the Yunus administration are absolutely, so I would say, shocking, because they actually, one of them said, "Oh no, it's a stage thing, it's the Indian authorities that did it themselves," which is the typical sort of speech of Al Qaeda and all the jihadis. They always say things like that. You remember the 9/11? They
And
said, "Oh,
also,
it's
yeah,
the Americans that did it."
I'll just remind or add to your statement that none of the advisors within the Yunus government expressed their condolence to this incident till now.
Yeah, I just saw it. I actually saw just before we went to studio that Mr. Yunus, perhaps over 24 hours after, finally he did, Mr. Yunus. Okay. And with such a delay, after a lot of his fellow advisors have more or less said that nothing happened and India is responsible and so on and so on. So it's a very weak thing. Yeah, of course, it's very telling. Everything, but I mean, it's not a surprise. I mean, I think it will. I would be surprised if something different would have happened. Then I would have said, "Oh, I did not understand what was going on." No, but for me, the day I saw it coming, I mean, in January last year, I already understood what was going to happen. Because it's very obvious. You have a country where the only organic force and ideology that can really challenge the existing system. Well, what the jihad is, nothing else. I mean, unfortunately, there was not, Awami League, BNP, there was not this cooperation that allowed for the 2008 elections and 2009 Awami League. Unfortunately, it was lost. I mean, I think there are responsibilities from a lot of people. I'm not going to blame guilt right now, but this was the most dramatic thing. And that's exactly the point where we should be aiming at. I mean, I think that we have to reconstruct the alliance in Bangladesh for people that want, a free, democratic, secure country that is not sponsoring terrorism, not allowing terrorism in borders, not exporting terrorism. Um, and this needs the Awami League, and it needs most of the BNP. And of course, I mean, if there was corruption during Awami League times, and if there is, a normal judicial system working, of course, no corrupt people should be spared from the justice. That's absolutely clear. Of course. And the BNP, those who have committed crimes, I mean, serious blood crimes, I mean, they absolutely impossible to deal with them, and they have to be excluded, very firmly excluded. And there must be an international pressure to this, to exclude all these sort of people, and then to revive a movement for, as it was done in 2007, 2008, a movement for reviving democracy and secularism in Bangladesh. That's the real great task. I think that Japan is a fundamental ally. India, I think it is obviously a very important country that has to be included. But Japan was perhaps the only country that did understand that what was going to happen, and it did not at all support the Yunus factor. People forget about Japan, but Japan is the most important in Asia. Still, it's Asia that we are speaking of. So Japan should be the first one to build an alliance, an international alliance, for a new Bangladesh.
Thank you. When we were talking about new Bangladesh, we cannot actually deny that China will play a huge role in all of this. So, how do you see China's role brewing up with all this tension in Bangladesh?
Well, the dispute, the China factor is a global factor. It's not only in Bangladesh. I mean, China was actually the biggest source of tension between the Indian authorities and the Sheikh Hasina government was exactly the China's factor. The Indian authorities were very displeased for the engagement of the Bangladesh in military terms with China. That's the most important thing. And the second thing, the Belt and Roads Initiative. And of course, that China is always there, one has to deal with China. But I think that China is not interested in a stable, free, democratic Bangladesh that will not be a problem for India. Because for India, the most important thing is to secure a country that will not export terrorism. That's it. Of course, there might be, some particular interest. I mean, this important businessman from India that wants to sell coal in Bangladesh. Okay, but that exists everywhere. The market economy is like that. Of course, I don't think, as I already had the opportunity of saying, I don't think this is a good idea. I mean, coal is something that South Asia should get rid of for health reasons. It's a tremendous threat to the health of South Asians in Dhaka, in Delhi, in Karachi, you name it. It's really something to get rid of. But that being said, India's main interest is very simple: that there is not the source of terrorism and fanaticism coming from Bangladesh. But the international community should really work to support this alternative. Of course, the United States are going to be very important, but I don't think that the United States can initiate this movement. I think that Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, these are the countries that should be thought of to initiate this sort of movement.
We have an organization called BIMSTEC, which is comprised of these countries of Southeast Asia and South Asian countries. A good organization to increase volume of business and to address socio-cultural and economical things together. So, uh, with with saying that, I will come back to the human rights situation in Bangladesh before we call it a day. Uh, First of all, the freedom of expression situation in Bangladesh is is very volatile because the present Yunus government is controlling the media heavily, and whoever is dissenting against it or whoever has any sort of chance in expressing his dissent against the regime of Yunus, they are putting behind the bar. These two of the cases that we talk always the time, one is Mr. Shahriar Kabir and another is Chinmay Krishna Dash. They are still behind the bar. And regarding Chinmay Krishna Dash, even the High Court division of the Supreme Court of Bangladesh has denied today for another week to hear his bail application. So, uh, with all this, where is it going? Where is the human rights situation of Bangladesh going?
Yeah, there is no freedom of press in Bangladesh. There is persecution of journalists. There are persecution of journalists as well as lawyers, as intellectuals, as whoever can be an obstacle for the dictatorship that is being installed in the country. And the only way to to have something different is for those who want freedom and democracy and want free and fair elections to get together, and they have to do it as soon as possible. And I think it's very good that the BNP is already said that it could not accept this indefinitely, postponement of elections. It's very, very important. But I think that this dialogue should be developed. I think that the international community should support this dialogue in as a way to devolve democracy to the country. The most important thing, of course, would be for the military to that are actually the ones who put Mr. Yunus in place to force a real, independent authorities that could monitor the elections independently. I mean, the Electoral Commission and all the bodies around the Electoral Commission, and of course the judicial system, the police system, should be working in an independent way, and only the army has the capacity to do it. And so I think that there should be pressure on the Bangladesh army for it to do it, exactly contrary to what was done, to the pressure that the United Nations, once again, they showed to be part of the problem rather than part of the solution. Not for the first time, but
Yeah,
it's very clear. It's one of
right.
the most important symptoms of the crisis. So the international community has to act a different way.
Another perspective is the Rohingya crisis in Bangladesh. Right now, the ARSA, which is the Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army, they are working within the territory of Bangladesh, very near to the capital Dhaka. A few days ago, they arrested one of their terrorist chiefs with arms and ammunitions. And recently, they have, enjoyed a festivity within the territory of Bangladesh. So, where is this Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army going? And especially, what will happen to the Rohingyas? And is there any conflict looming in the Western sky that Bangladesh is going to confront Myanmar in a military intervention? What do you think about all these things?
Well, you see, from I think, of course, that the Rohingya crisis. I have been, in the camps, the Rohingya camps, back in 2018, and I have been as well in Myanmar, on the other side of the border. And of course, I think that this is a deep-rooted problem. Actually, there is an institutionalized racism in Myanmar that is completely absurd. Actually, even the word race, the races, the 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 true races of Myanmar. I mean, there is a museum, the top level of the museum, the National Museum, in Yangon. Two races, and not not a single presence of Bengalis. And of course, Bengalis have been for centuries, especially on the coast, on all the area under conflict. And so this is the deep source of the problem. And of course, the way that the population was treated, the Bengalis living in Myanmar, in Burma, were treated, made them, an easy target for the extremists, Islamists, and the damage is done. The damage is done. It's now it's very difficult. You can't put the devil back into the box. So the situation is certainly not at all easy. Uh, it will probably take a very, very long time to get some truthful reconciliation between these Bengalis, most of them Muslims, but they are Hindus. I actually visited a refugee camp. Myanmar is a disaster, and I don't think that there is no will from China to get any peaceful solution over there. So this will be a tremendous problem, because to a certain extent, the Chittagong-Giltrac's people are a bit the correspondents of the Rohingyas, are reverse, are the people that are not Bengalis and are in Bangladesh and they have difficulties to be accepted. And so I would tell you, don't expect a rapid solution to this. No, but the later we start, the worse to sort out the problem.
Thank you for interpreting all these questions and issues, because a lot has been going on centering Bangladesh in last 15 years. I don't know about you, but I haven't seen so many activities going around the borders of in Bangladesh. You know, it was rather a peaceful place, but now it seems that it is in the hot stove. So with this, we'd like to wrap up today's SADF podcast. Thank you, Paolo, for being with us once again. And we hope that very soon we will have you again to discuss about more burning issues centering South Asia.
Thank you very much for the invitation, and congratulations for your very good work.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.